Good morning. Absolutely delighted to welcome you to the campus of North Carolina State University. Certainly Governor Cooper, members of Governor Cooper's leadership team, our media, and so many guests and friends of the university. So I'd like to recognize certainly U.S. Representative Kathy Manning. I think I saw. Thank you. We're delighted to have you with us today. County Commissioner and Chair Skip Austin. Good morning. Thank you for joining us as well, and certainly Mayor Nancy Vaughn, delighted to have you with us this morning as well. We're always delighted to have Governor Cooper on our campus, a friend of our university, and we're delighted to be a part of the opportunity to host this conversation as the governor makes an important announcement today. And it's appropriate to make this announcement today from this campus with the significant work we continue to do in an area around the announcement by our governor. We are no strangers to work in clean energy and related areas. We have outstanding work going on with a number of our faculty leaders across a variety of areas in particular. And for example, we're delighted to recognize one of our young faculty members, Dr. Balakrishna Karaju, who leads a very important collaboration called Clean Energy Apprenticeship that is working to produce a workforce around clean energy. This past summer, we graduated some 30 graduates of the initiative, and we're expecting, based on Dr. Gokaraju's comments with me this morning, tripling that number to about 100 or so individuals for this coming summer. And Dr. Karaju leads this initiative for our university and for this state as well. Congratulations. Also excited about the exceptional work being done by Dr. Greg Monty. I'm not sure if Dr. Monty is with us this morning, who leads our Energy Research Center and Technology. This is an interdisciplinary research center that fosters collaborative study and development of new energy-related technologies, from basic and applied research to renewable energy, energy efficiency, alternative fuels, vehicle technology, sustainable green buildings, and the environment. As well as Dr. Ademi Makonnen. Dr. Makonnen, are you with us this morning? Who is editor and co-author of for the past 6 years, of the state's focus on the climate report, which is an initiative that's focused and supported by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and again focuses on carbon emissions and their role in the accumulation of greenhouse gases. And finally, Dr. Godfrey Uzuchukwu. Dr. Uzuchukwu is the mentor and faculty member of Administrator Michael Regan, who is now the administrator for the U.S. EPA and was former secretary for the Department of Environmental Quality for North Carolina under the administration of Governor Cooper. And we're delighted for the incredible work that Dr. Uzuchukwu is doing as well. And he has now been recently appointed to the Scientific Advisory Board for the U.S. Department of Environmental Protection as well. As many of you know, Administrator Michael Regan is a distinguished alumnus of our university and was our commencement speaker for our fall commencement. We're always excited to share that we're not only the largest HBCU in the nation, but we are the largest producer of African-American engineers in our nation as well. And as a consequence, we are excited about the investments that have been made recently in creating the new Engineering Research and Innovation Complex that will open this February. It is a $90 million, 130,000 square foot high technology facility that has been funded by the 2016 Connect North Carolina Bond Referendum passed by the citizens of North Carolina, of which we're excited about. This new high technology facility is an exceptional addition to this campus. Not only will it enhance our capacity to produce even more engineers at the undergraduate and graduate levels, it will also enhance the significant and innovative research we're doing in general, enhancing our capacity as the third leading research university in the UNC system, but it also enhances the work we do in clean energy space as well. Again, I'm delighted that we are hosting this event today, and it is always a pleasure to have the governor and his team on our campus, and it's my great pleasure to welcome to the podium the governor of this great state, Governor Roy Cooper. Governor Cooper.
Thank you, Chancellor. It's always amazing to be on the campus of this great university. I appreciate that introduction. I know how to dress when I come, and I always appreciate the warm welcome that I get here. In addition to Chair Austin and Mayor Vaughn and Congresswoman Manning, we have our Secretary of State here in North Carolina. Whenever I sign an executive order, governor signs an executive order, must be attested by the Secretary of State, and we're glad that she's here. We have Representative Amos Quick, who's a great Guilford County representative here today, along with a lot of my staff members who have worked so hard on this project. You're going to hear from a couple of our cabinet members as well, and I'm grateful to our universities and community colleges that have helped to pull this together. I love it when I come to North Carolina A&T State University. I recruit a lot of businesses for North Carolina. We've been wildly successful lately, and you know, I've been pleased that corporate America has understood the value more of diversity and how the bottom line is increased when you're diverse, that you are better when you're diverse, that you have more points of view. And I can always say that North Carolina has more four-year HBCUs than any other state in the country, and that North Carolina A&T State University graduates more black engineers than any other institution in the country. That opens eyes, and I think it makes people recognize what an amazing resource that we have here in North Carolina with our educational institutions. And one of the main goals of my administration is to move us to a clean energy economy to fight the existential threat of climate change and to create good-paying jobs that's going to put more money in people's pockets. We know that climate change has caused more severe storms. And we also know that often the effects of these storms hurt most the people who can afford it the least. And we know that the clean energy economy is bringing a bonanza of jobs to our state. We don't have to look very far to the new Toyota EV battery plant that has just located here in this area. We know that our solar industry in North Carolina is one of the fastest growing job creators that we have, and so excited about these apprenticeships and the internship programs that we have in clean energy across the state, particularly those that focus on our low to moderate income communities, our communities of color, our marginalized communities. Creating these jobs is going to be exciting. So what have we done so far? A couple of highlights in my administration. First is Executive Order 80 in 2018, where we set statewide greenhouse gas emission standards, set a goal for North Carolina reductions. We set out in that order priorities to get more electric vehicles on the road, told the rest of the country and the world that North Carolina cares about clean energy and we want to go there. Then I issued Executive Order 218, which encourages us to move to more wind energy and offshore wind energy. We have set up our Environmental Justice and Equity Board at the Department of Environmental Quality. The previous Secretary, Michael Regan, started that. Dr. Johnson, you're going to hear from him today. We do understand the effects of pollution and climate change on these communities, and this order is going to emphasize doing significantly more. Proud to have some members of the Andrea Harris Task Force here, which has been looking at health effects on people and how environmental pollution can affect the health of people, particularly in marginalized communities. Then, this past legislation, this past legislative session, the bipartisan House Bill 951 that sets a carbon standard, a required carbon standard for our utility sector, reducing greenhouse gases from the utility sector by by 70% over the 2005 levels by 2030, and net zero by 2050. We have begun the apprenticeships for young people, and I'm grateful for those. So today, I will sign Executive Order 246, which is another important step to increase the goals of greenhouse gas reductions, move more quickly to clean transportation, and to curb environmental injustices that affect our most vulnerable communities. We must build a clean, equitable economy for all North Carolinians. First, this order aims to reduce, yet again, the overall state greenhouse gas emissions to at least 50% by 2030 and net zero no later than 2050. Now remember, House Bill 951 deals just with the utility sector. This is overall greenhouse gas emissions for North Carolina. To meet this goal, we're going to update our statewide greenhouse gas inventory, so we will know where we are and where we need to be. The order also directs my cabinet and my administration to consider the harms of greenhouse gas emissions when we're making decisions. The order also takes important steps to transition to a clean transportation future. We're going to up the goals in EO 80 now in this new order. We're going to increase the goal of having 1.25 million zero-emission vehicles on North Carolina roads by 2030. And you're going to hear from Secretary Boyette, but we're going to direct the Department of Transportation to work with stakeholders to decarbonize the transportation system. We can look right here in Greensboro, Mayor Vaughn and Chair Austin, what you've done with electric buses and how that has been an important step and will continue to be an important step in decarbonizing our transportation sector. And we know people who ride these buses absolutely love them, and they're going to be an important part of our future. And I think, importantly, this order does acknowledge that for too long, our low and moderate income communities, our communities of color, our indigenous communities have been disproportionately impacted by pollution and climate change. So it will direct our state agencies to prioritize funding investments in these communities, to identify an environmental justice lead to serve as the point person on environmental justice efforts, and these are in all of the cabinet agencies. And each cabinet agency is to develop a public participation plan to improve communication and to get more input from these communities in the decision-making process. We want to build off of the environmental justice and equity work done at DEQ, first under Secretary Regan and now under Secretary Biser. We want to build on the work of the Andrea Harris Task Force. We want to also encourage Council of State agencies, our universities, our community colleges, all of these other agencies that don't fall under the directive of the governor's executive order to follow suit. I'll give you an example of how that has happened. We started and I issued an executive order requiring state employees to be able to get paid parental leave. And other agencies followed suit, Council of State, community colleges, universities. We hope the same thing happens with this order with environmental justice. This is an important day for our state. I am excited to see the new green energy jobs and the efforts that we are making to get students from many of these communities to get trained for the jobs that will improve their lives, their families' lives, and the life of the planet as well. I do recognize that there is a lot more to do, but I believe that this order can help establish a framework for all of us to succeed. I'm now going to recognize our Secretary of the Department of Environmental Quality, Elizabeth Biser, who has not been on the job too long, but has been confirmed by the General Assembly and is working hard on this issue and many others. Secretary Biser, I will recognize you.
Well, thank you, Governor, for your continued leadership on these important issues. You have consistently set goals to address the impacts of climate change, and you've prioritized a just transition, one that doesn't leave any North Carolinian behind. And today's actions are another step forward on that path. This administration is taking a whole-of-government approach in reducing emissions. By addressing the two largest sectors, transportation and power, we are ensuring that every action we take will have an impact. Today's actions build on the success of Executive Order 80 and House Bill 951, setting our emission reduction goal to 50% statewide by 2030 and pushing for even more zero-emission vehicles on our roadways. And as we prepare our state's workforce for the jobs in these industries, it's a reminder that what's good for the environment is also good for our economy. Achieving these goals will bring environmental, economic, and public health benefits to North Carolinians. Just as important are the measures to make sure that those benefits reach every community in our state as we advance our climate and energy goals. The pre-apprenticeship program, like the one DEQ, DHHS, and North Carolina A&T State University have partnered on for energy efficiency work, show what it's possible when we work together. And I'm excited to see that model expand as we focus on workforce diversity and training and transitioning to our clean energy economy future. Ensuring that every cabinet agency has a designated environmental justice and equity lead is a critical measure to give every community a voice in the processes of state government. It is a key first step in making sure that state government works well for all North Carolinians. I can tell you that at DEQ, the public engagement and input from community stakeholders as a result of our work on environmental justice have broadened our perspectives and conversations that inform our agency's actions. It makes us a better agency, and it helps us to more effectively respond to the people we serve. I have personally found the advice from our Environmental Justice and Equity Advisory Board members to be incredibly valuable as we're approaching issues like making sure that federal funding reaches the communities that need it the most. The pandemic has exposed the inequities that have always existed in society and laid them bare. We all know that there is so much more work to be done to address those inequities, but today's actions are a great step forward. It's a commitment to partnering with community leaders and stakeholders to work together to determine the best path forward and the best ways to address equity and environmental justice in our state. Now, I'd like to introduce someone who's been an advisor to me in my time at DEQ so far as chair of our Environmental Justice and Equity Advisory Board and a fellow member of the Andre Harris Task Force, Dr. Jim Johnson.
Secretary Biser, thank you for that introduction and for your leadership at DEQ. I look forward to working together to address these important issues, to continuing to work with you on these issues. Thank you, Governor Cooper, for taking bold actions in this executive order to transition North Carolina to a green economy by 2030. The environmental justice provisions that are included in this executive order go a long way toward ensuring that the state can achieve the exemplary public health equity goals and targeted outcomes set forth in the recent released Healthy North Carolina 2030, a pathway toward health report. Far too often, North Carolina's reputation as one of the nation's most attractive migration destinations is compromised by a host of environmental justice and other social, economic, and health equity issues. Environmental justice concerns particularly can tarnish the state's image as an attractive, prosperous, and inclusive place to live, work, play, and do business, derailing future growth if left unaddressed. The 2020 census revealed that 95% of the state's growth over the previous decade was concentrated in 15 counties that are mainly urban in character and rich in amenities. The remaining 85 counties experienced slow growth, no growth, or population decline. The majority of these mostly rural communities have aging populations and a host of environmental justice communities whose residents suffer from the cumulative impacts of exposure to air and waterborne releases from multiple polluting industries and other locally unwanted land uses, as well as destructive weather events that adversely affect repeatedly, in some instances, community health and well-being, as well as life expectancy. In several important ways, this executive order casts new light on environmental injustices and imposes greater accountability on the state to address environmental equities. First, in a state where the population is rapidly becoming more diverse demographically and linguistically, and where the gap between the haves and the have-nots is widening geographically and economically, requiring all state agencies to develop public participation and communication plans to promote greater transparency in government decision-making is a strategic imperative. Secondly, by requiring all state agencies to appoint an environmental justice advocate, this executive order can potentially leverage a host of best practice equity tools that other states and localities have utilized to redress existing environmental justice issues and prevent environmental justice communities from being overburdened by noxious facilities and locally unwanted land uses. Most notably, given appropriations in the current state budget combined with available federal dollars from the American Rescue Plan to address equity issues, this executive order can potentially lead to a more inclusive and equitable system of contracting and procurement, whereby residents of environmental justice communities can create homegrown businesses capable of both cleaning up legacy pollutants and retrofitting community-based institutions like 6 school buildings as green infrastructure. In this way, past environmental injustices can be leveraged to create current economic opportunity and justice for the residents of environmental justice communities. Thirdly, by targeting public schools and environmental justice communities and our historically black colleges and universities, this executive order, through the promotion of entrepreneurship and workforce development provisions, can begin to prepare the next generation of diverse business owners and talent that can accelerate the state's transition to a green economy. Given slowing total and white population growth in our state and nation, investments in these two provisions of the executive order constitute a form of enlightened self-interest for our state, guaranteeing our future attractiveness and competitiveness in the global marketplace. In short, this executive order, I'm pleased to say, Governor Cooper, will increase the likelihood that all North Carolinians are able to live in vibrant communities and pursue employment in workplaces free of environmental risk. Next, I am pleased to introduce Secretary Eric Boyette, who leads the North Carolina Department of Transportation. Secretary Boyette was appointed by the governor in February of 2020 and brings more than 25 years of experience to the role, to include previously serving as the Secretary and State Chief Information Officer for the North Carolina Department of Information Technology. Secretary Boyette.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson, and good morning, everyone. We couldn't have a more fitting time to be gathering today to talk about this great news. If you just think about the past week, we've had unwitnessed record highs with not only temperatures but rainfall amounts. We've had severe thunderstorms. We've had severe flooding. We've had wind damage. We've had tornado issues. We've had multiple snowstorms. So when we talk about climate change, we're seeing it. And we're already leading to more frequent and severe weather events here in North Carolina. NCDOT has an important role to play when it comes to investing in our resilient infrastructure. We're working to reduce our emissions, advancing environmental justice, and capitalizing on the economic opportunity that comes with transitioning over to the cleaner transportation system. Resiliency is about preparing for now, recovering from, and looking where we can weather the impacts of our future storms. We have ongoing activities currently on I-95 on our south of around Lumberton right now, raising that area for preventing for future impacts of storms. We also have prime examples on US 421 near Wilmington where we're replacing culverts with bridges. We're also replacing a lot of our culverts with larger size pipes. There's a lot of things that we're doing currently to continue to look for these future and try to be more resilient around these storms. We're trying to do what we can to prepare for what we're seeing today. We also understand that we need to address the causes of these changes to our climate by reducing emissions. Nationally, we've seen the transportation sector surpass the power sector as leading sources of these greenhouse gases, as you heard from Secretary Biser. Simply put, we must plan now for a clean transportation future. This is our great next step for North Carolina and build upon the hard work that's already been accomplished to date. We know the future of transportation includes autonomous vehicles, connected vehicles, electric vehicles, all of that technology. We've got to make sure we're more equitable to make sure the access to providing that variety of clean mobility options, all of that is there. The cleaner fuels, much, much more to come. It's impressive to see the works here in the Triad. You heard from the governor when you talk about Greensboro being the first city that had electric buses, their transit system. Other transit systems are following suit, and we're glad to help and be there and to partner with each and every one of them. It's also a host of number of businesses that are moving here and advancing electric vehicles. You also heard the governor talk about there was a small announcement around Toyota, the manufacturing battery plant that's coming to our mega site. So there's a lot more to come. Technology is here to stay, and we must make sure, and this executive order that the governor is signing today supports that swift transition to zero emission vehicles and also a cleaner, more equitable transportation future. As we develop the clean transportation plan, we can focus more on coordinating with our state agencies, with our partners, and sharing the data to maximize the consumer, the economic, and the environmental benefits that we will see. We are committed to making a clean transportation future equitable and accessible for all of our people and all of our North Carolinians. NCDOT is working closely with the Department of Environmental Quality to deploy electric trucks, buses to improve our air quality, commutes for major traffic areas. This supports both today's executive order and the multi-state memorandum of understanding that Governor Cooper signed in 2020 that focuses on converting medium and heavy-duty vehicles to electric. We are also thankful for the federal government for their support through Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. It helps us implement this technology. Our state is anticipated to receive about $109 million over the next 5 years to help expand our EV charging network. A lot of that is what we have to make sure we're moving our transportation system forward. Also receiving funding for future improving our clean transportation infrastructure for bike, ped, rail, transit, and other transportation modes. We look forward to working with our fellow State Department, local partners, and creating the clean transportation plan that will serve not only our children, but our grandchildren and beyond. Governor, with that, I'll turn it back to you, sir.
All right, now we're going to get this thing done. I'm going to invite folks who've been at speakers and our front row folks here to come around who would like to. Jeremy Tarr, you ought to get down here too. I'm going to sign this executive order, and then our Secretary of State is going to attest. You guys come on in here. We'll stay together for just a very short time. It won't take me but a minute. All right, you guys ready?
Yes.
All right, Madam Secretary, you would. Maybe the most valuable.
Guess it doesn't happen if we don't sign.
That's exactly right.
Here you go, Ryan, it's my line.
All right, we have a new executive order that will help us. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate that. And what I'll do is open it up for media questions. I have some staff members here that can help. There are others, but I'll just open it up. Are we going to do it this way, Jordan? Yep. All right, okay. Guys?
Obviously an exciting day. Why was it so important to be here on campus and to really get some, interest from students when you're signing something like this?
So we wanted to come to North Carolina A&T State University because they are already on the cutting edge of helping to prepare students for these jobs of tomorrow, and have taken a leading role in working out and trying to set up these apprenticeships. We are particularly focused on marginalized communities, indigenous communities, communities of color, those who have faced the impact of pollution and climate change in a disproportionate way, all of these storms. It would be great if a lot of the very people in these communities could get the new clean energy jobs of today and tomorrow. And we want to recognize what North Carolina A&T State University is doing now, but realize that our educational institutions across the state are going to play a key role in helping to prepare our clean energy workforce, because that's how we're going to get the Toyotas and the rest of them to come and to get these jobs here.
How do you envision the clean transportation plan getting developed? Is it going to be similar to the clean energy plan? And do you think there's going to be legislative recommendations that are going to come out of that?
So I think it would be similar to the clean energy plan, because that was an amazing stakeholder process that led to the passage of House Bill 951. And so in addition to creating a lot of other avenues for us to make progress in clean energy. So I do believe it would be a collaborative process. And Secretary Boyette, if you want to just talk just 1 minute about your plan for this.
Yes, sir. The governor has always had that on point. It will be a partnership. It's something that we will have to reach out to our community partners, to our, not only if you look at the transportation itself, but we talked about equity, and that's a big part of what we're trying to accomplish with this. So it'll be a good partnership. I keep saying that, but it is. It really is. It's a partnership that we have to make sure we're including, each and every one of our partners that have a seat at the table, to make sure we're hearing from everyone and that we make sure we accomplish that mission.
Unfortunately,
What are some of the environmental justice impacts you want to see addressed specifically in some of the agencies?
So first, we know that a lot of people in marginalized communities, communities of color, live in places that are most impacted by climate change. We've heard the Secretary and others talk about storms and flooding, and it usually hits people like that in those communities even harder. So the efforts that we want to make is to first recognize that, and then the funds that we are able to invest and channel from the federal government, recognizing that these communities need to be more resilient, that there may need to be retreat and rebuilding of these communities. We also know that decisions that state government makes about locating certain facilities can be in communities that are affected by this. We want to get greater input. We want to do things that can help protect those communities. And we also want to create a strategic plan here. This executive order does not have all of the answers, but what we found out in this process before, massive stakeholder engagement can get us to a better place. So, there's some things that we can't affect without legislative changes, but often we've been able to get legislative changes because we've had such a stakeholder process and have built up the effects. So we look forward to that happening.
Governor, can I get one more in
Okay.
off subject?
Yeah, sure.
Do you anticipate or have any plans taking further steps to protect the citizens of this state against the growing threat of the virus?
Oh, sure. Number one, we are working daily with our healthcare facilities in trying to make sure that they have the capacity to be able to handle people who get sick from this virus. We do know that symptoms seem to be milder. People who are vaccinated and boosted often have no symptoms or very mild symptoms. So that's positive. Also, people who do go to the hospital are usually getting out quicker. So that's all positive. But we want to make sure that we are ready for that. Second, we are doubling down on working to try to get more testing out in our communities. We know that that is a key part of protecting ourselves from this virus. And we want to get this virus to the endemic stage. We understand that this virus is going to be with us for a long time, but that we need to make sure that we can lead normal lives and live with it, protect ourselves, and try to reduce people getting sick and dying from this virus. Guys, thank you so much.